Hello there. This is another discussion in which my students chose the topic of studying abroad. To be specific, do you think to study abroad is useful in an effort to improve your English or even your field of specialty? That's what we're going to discuss today. So first of all, do you agree with this? Do you think in Japan there is an increase in the inward-looking youth? What do I mean by that? Well, apparently, only 4% of all university students study abroad nowadays, according to the Education Ministry of Japan. A government survey from 2019 found that just a third of young Japanese actually want to study abroad, which is a lot less than South Korea, which is 66%, and the Germans, which is 51%. And these are just two examples. A survey by Sanyo University in 2017 found that 60% of young employees, in fact, did not want to work in another country, which is an increase of 36% from 10 years ago. So these are concerns. So what do you think about that? Well, let's think again. Why do you learn English? Is it because it's enjoyable fun? Is it because you have to, or you want to get extra credits in your degree? Would it help you in your future work opportunities? Would you like it, to travel and learn possibly other cultures, or even just to enjoy things such as TV, movies, and music? Or do you think that by focusing on your English, you can further your education or research abroad? Well, if you look here, this is the English abilities of Japan ranked on their TOEFL scores. And as you can see, just in Asia alone, Japan is ranked 26th. Now, this is 2018, so it has improved, but only by a little. And if we think about how to improve your English, this chart indicates how many hours you need to improve. So to be able to travel abroad, you need 700 hours of practice, able to use it at work, 1,000 hours. But to become a lot more advanced, you can see that how the number of hours you need to actively produce English is considerably a lot. And so maybe you could think that studying abroad might be the quickest route to get that practice. But then again, also, you have to consider that this is only information on a rough scale. And so if you think about Japan from our previous video, you'll find that approaches to learning English are also important too. If you remember the high school approach to learning English, this is not always the best way. So when you think about going abroad, it is expensive. Yes, you've got to think about the cost of the educational fees. You also got to think about additional costs as well when studying abroad, and not to mention the daily living as well. So you can find it's quite expensive. And now with a weak yen, it's become even more expensive. And also let's think about the government goals. Now, recently, in fact, the ministry announced a new policy, this one to enhance high school students studying abroad, to return the numbers of going abroad to increase. So they've got a target of around 100,000 students per year by 2027, which is a huge increase. Apparently, they say that our policy is intended to encourage students to study overseas earlier, so that it will lead to the next steps in their studying abroad, according to the government ministry official. We would like to return to the pre-COVID level soon to create more global leaders. Now, this could be just rhetoric, or it could be something which the government really believes in. But if you look at their policies in high school about teaching, we would have to question such goals. But overseas would definitely motivate students, that's for sure. So the program has already raised 12.3 billion yen in donations from companies, organizations, and individuals. So there is money put forward to assist. Well, let's have a look then at the benefits, okay, of going abroad. You'll first learn to be independent, yes? Finally become an adult, moving away from home grants us the freedom to become independent rather than living at home with your family. Before, we had to depend on parents for each and everything. If you had a question, you know who you ask. But when you're abroad, you can't. So we can learn how to depend on ourselves, learn to take decisions that will affect our lives in the long run, and become more responsible in ourselves and those who are around us. So that's one advantage. The second one is traveling, something I love a lot. Opportunities to broaden our horizons by being able to travel to different places in the country we shift to, and also, in fact, to visit countries nearby as well. So we can take part in fun activities such as hiking, camping, visiting local landscapes, and so on. And it's a brilliant way to learn more about that country and what's around. Another advantage is that you're learning new languages, of course. Okay, so you can become fluent in that native language. So predominantly this would be English. And as I mentioned before, because of the hours required to learn a language, it would be quite beneficial to study in that country. Almost all degree programs are taught in English, yet many students are not fluent in it. Now, this is not so much in Japan, but if you decide to study abroad as an international student, then English is required mostly. Hence, if you're planning to go abroad, make sure you take a course on the native language there. So obviously you can learn other languages at that country too. It's really important as such. Now, experiencing new cultures is another attractive factor of studying abroad. It helps us interact with people of different race, ethnicity, religions, and cultures which are prevalent there, which are most common there, in other words. Students who move abroad for higher studies are able to learn and experience cultures different from what they have lived with all their lives. And this can be a fascinating, exciting, and interesting experience. Also, you can make new friends. Yes, you can. When you move to a new place and a new institution, it helps you in networking with different people of different race and ethnicity. By being there, you can make new friends, which can shape your lives in the future and also your outlook in what you want to do. And then there's your own culture too. Okay, distance makes the heart grow fonder. In other words, you miss your own country and appreciate it a lot more. So it can be a joyous moment for students and their family and friends when you return, a sense of achievement. People learn to appreciate one another when separated for long periods of time, and hence when one returns home, the moments spent together are priceless, or at least, or maybe just relief. However, although there are the benefits, there are obviously going to be issues as well to consider. So if we think about expenses, as I mentioned earlier, it is expenses. Moving to a different country automatically leads to extra expenses that we have to manage in our own and without often parent support as well financially. All right. Likewise, not many students can afford to shift to another country. You know, things like pay the rent, the travel expenses, as well as the tuition fees from the university, which may differ in amount depending on the exchange rate as such, and also the country, because some countries are a lot more expensive than others. Also, not being fluent in that new language. Okay, so not being able to speak that native language well could lead to not being able to interact with those who do not speak any English at all, or your first language. So that can be really challenging too. And so maybe you cannot find friends. So no one can be fluent in another country's language in 1 or 2 days. So you must prepare for these challenges. Hence, it's vital for someone shifting abroad to take a language test so they know exactly their ability. So a lot of universities in Japan tend to focus on a minimum TOEIC score, I think around 450, as such, to make sure that they can be able to speak sufficient English. Then there's the culture shock. Yes, shifting to a different country with different culture can be rewarding, but it can also be extremely challenging. Learn the behavior of following traditions that might come as a shock. So please be aware of that. Obviously, when you read these programs about studying abroad, they're going to try to sell the image of it, but there is a culture shock as well. Then there's the intense homesickness as well, which is related to it, to the previous point, that is. Studying away from home can be tough, even if you have only moved to a different part of the country. But imagine, it's much tougher if you studied another country, which is vastly different from what you're used to. So being halfway around means that it will be difficult to come home for holidays or the weekend, or just to get some, appreciation from friends and family back at home. And then there's the endless chores and other responsibilities too, because, okay, you're learning to be independent, but for those who shift to different countries, they find themselves struggling with their chaotic at times lifestyle, assignments, but also chores necessary when living alone, as well as a new language. So they cannot depend on their parents too. So what do? So it can be very hard work. And then returning home. Once you return home, for those people who actually enjoyed studying abroad, you might find that you missed that foreign country and its various traditions, cultures, and way of life. And so therefore, you become so used to a certain way of life in that other country that when you go back, you have to receive a further culture shock about your own country. Furthermore, other things to think about. Well, could you really live in an unclean environment? Now, this does happen, okay, where you live in accommodations which is not clean, where there are maybe sanitation issues. And by yourself, what would you do about it? So these could be concerns. Finding suitable accommodation is a challenge, okay, and it can be very stressful. And universities may decide that they might not be able to help you, and then you start panicking. So this person said, I talked with so many people and I felt that I was very overwhelmed. I was very angry and disappointed and also helpless. Because remember, you're in your foreign country and you don't know enough people. And then topped with the COVID-19, this became quite stressful for a lot of international students. So that's something else to remember. But balance that off. Think about back in Japan in the work environment. Still, English is one of the most important requirements, it would seem, in finding work. So do remember that too. So to recap, benefits of studying abroad. Well, what are the pros? You get to know a new culture, can practice a foreign culture, opportunity to make new friends, improve your English abilities, may improve your educational level in your field of specialty, advance in your understanding of educational learning techniques, make unforgettable memories, which you'll keep forever, get out of your comfort zone, become more independent, and give a new perspective of your goals, because you will change from this experience. And then you can appreciate your own culture more. However, there are problems as well, which you must keep in mind when you think about traveling abroad to study. It can be expensive. That's the form foremost, definitely. You can suffer from homesickness. You have communication problems. There is a culture shock, and adapting to a new culture can be extremely difficult. You may prolong your duration of study because you've added more time to your studies because you've decided to spend 6 months abroad. You may struggle with alternative approaches to learning because, for example, in Japan and Western countries, they have different focuses of how to learn. Western countries are definitely more student-centered, whereas countries such as Japan are more teacher-centered. You may lose friends over time because you lose contact by being abroad, and you may feel basically overwhelmed, too much to deal with by yourself. And so also there's social exclusion and feeling isolated because you cannot commute clearly enough to make friends internationally, as well as from those who are local to that country. So there we go, the pros and cons of studying abroad. So those who believe in it's a positive experience, go this side, and those who believe it's not going to be a good experience, but more of a challenge, go on the other side. Get ready to prepare your ideas and then discuss them. Good luck. Thank you.